I've got a lot of things to talk about right now. The undercard of Canelo Alvarez versus Crawford is going to be amazing, amazing, and blazing. Fernando Vargas, 17 and 0 with 15 KOs, is going to fight an Irish guy named Callum Walsh, who is 14 and 0 with 11 KOs. That's going to be guns blazing. That's going to be hell on wheels. That's going to be, I hate to use that terminology, but it's intense because I saw the press conference how Callum Walsh walked right towards Vargas Jr. If you didn't know, his father was a champion of Trinidad, and I'm really high on this guy. This guy is very, very talented. Fernando Vargas Jr. He is the truth. I think he's the goods. He's 17 and 0 with 15 KOs. He's very quick, very powerful. His last performance was good. You know, we haven't seen him fight anybody like Callum Walsh. I don't know too much about Callum Walsh, but he is he's highly regarded, and he's from Ireland. He's from Cork, Ireland, and he has a really great record, 14 and 0 with 11 KOs. And so does Fernando Vargas, 17 and 0 with 15 KOs. As you know, Dana White is actually he's been promoting Callum Walsh for a while, and I think Callum Walsh was a UFC fighter, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that is what I actually saw in one article that I was reading. I think they alluded to him being a actual UFC fighter, but I think he's a boxer. But I think that Dana White this is going to be Dana White's first boxing promotion, Canelo Alvarez versus Crawford, and I believe that this guy Callum Walsh, he's probably going to be tough, and I don't think he was. Yes. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties online. How you doing, Z Cather? How you guys doing? Yes, I had to set up again. Subscribe to that channel. Tony also knows boxing. Z Chatter said hi. Alex Oman Sanchez said hi. God bless you, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Tony Knows Boxing. Tony also knows boxing. Hi, what are we doing? We're talking about boxing. We're basically talking about the undercard of Canelo Alvarez versus Crawford, which is going to have amazing talent on the undercard. It's going to have Edward Billy's. M. Billy's, he's actually 29 and 0 with 24 KOs, and he's gonna fight the Guatemalan contender who sparred with Crawford many times and actually prepared Crawford for the Canelo Alvarez fight. And he is 16 and 0. No, he's 19 and 0 with 16 KOs, and he's gonna fight M. Billy's for M. Billy's interim WBC championship. Who in Billy has a record of 29 and 0 with 24 KOs, and he is the ring's #1 ranked contender. So he's not a slouch, and it's going to be a competitive fight, and I believe the best man will win, and we're going to see what both of them are made of on the undercard of Canelo Alvarez versus Crawford, which is going to be amazing and blazing. And I feel Fernando Vargas fighting Callum Smith, not Callum Smith, I'm not talking about Callum Walsh. Callum Walsh. He has a similar name to Callum Smith, who's fighting Subriel Matias. Supposedly, we don't know yet. But Callum Walsh is from Cork, Ireland, and he has an impressive record of 14 and 0 with 11 KOs. And Fernando Vargas also has an impressive record of 17 and 0 with 15 KOs. And as we saw in the press conference, there was a lot of bad blood between them. You could feel the energy. The energy, the intensity of the face-off that they had, it was really brutal and intense, and you could tell there's going to be a lot of fireworks in that fight, and it's going to be a very competitive fight. I'm rooting for Fernando Vargas. I'm going for him. I don't like Callum Walsh's demeanor, but yeah, he's confident, but I also feel like he seems like a type of person that's probably overlooking Fernando Vargas, thinking that Fernando Vargas is not the real deal, which he really is. And I feel that in a fight like this, you got to take everything serious. Both fighters are coming in with their A game, I believe. But I believe that Callum Walsh seems like the type of fighter that has a chip on his shoulder, and he's probably a little arrogant. He seems like he's a little arrogant. His demeanor, I don't know how to utter it into words, but you can tell by a person's demeanor that they are looking at who they're fighting as like a stepping stone, and he's not taking him serious. He thinks that he's not going to be a threat. That's the energy I get from Callum Walsh as far as the way he perceives the fight with Fernando Vargas. I could be wrong, but Fernando Vargas Jr. is nobody to play with, and I like this last performance. Quick KO. It was a quick, I think, second round KO or first round. And this fight right here is going to actually show what both of them are made of. And I believe there's going to be a lot of answers and questions answered about each fighter. And the other fight that I also find very interesting is Lester Martinez, who actually sparred with Crawford and prepared Crawford for the Canelo Alvarez fight. And he is 19-0 with 16 KOs. And the fighter that he's fighting, M. Billy, is the ring's #1 contender. He's ranked the #1 in the ring. He's the #1 boxer in the ring in the super middleweight division. So I feel like 29-0 with 24 KOs. They're fighting for M. Billy's interim WBC, and that's going to be interesting because it's going to put Lester Martinez in a position to fight for the WBC or fight Canelo if business doesn't get in the way. But I feel like the David Benavidez fight should be made instead of a Lester Martinez fight. But you never know in boxing how things work out. They do whatever's convenient for them so they don't lose, especially Canelo. So I feel the undercard is already stacked with those two fights that I'm really looking forward to. Callum Walsh versus Fernando Vargas. I'm going for Fernando Vargas, but this is going to be a fight that's going to show what both of them are made of. And I don't know too much about Callum Walsh, but he's from Cork, Ireland, and they're really high on him. The company of Dana White, who's a UFC promoter, now he's getting into boxing promotion for the first time with Canelo Alvarez versus Crawford. And another thing I thought about the weight difference. A lot of people are making comparisons with different fights. When a fighter moves up in weight, like in the situation with not situation, but in the circumstances of Crawford. Crawford is really 147 pounder. He moved to 154 for Israeli Madrimov, and then after that he skipped 160, going straight to 168 to fight Canelo. So it's 3 weight classes, and I believe that Roy Jones made a great point. Roy Jones was being interviewed by Andre Ward in his show, and they were talking about how do you feel about Crawford fighting Canelo in Canelo's weight class, who he has been fighting for years in that weight class. And then Roy Jones basically answered, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not saying the exact words, but this is what Roy Jones told him, that, you know, when it comes to Canelo, he's not really a one-punch power hitter, and neither is Crawford. Both of them are not one-punch power hitters, but they do have power. And, you know, Crawford, you know, if he's moving up in weight, which he's not technically moving up in weight, that's what Roy Jones said, because he's cutting down weight, because he walks around at 183. So if you really look at it, if Roy Jones was saying that if Crawford was going up in weight to fight Canelo, then there would be a factor, the weight difference, because he's going up in weight and he has to gain weight to make the weight. So it's going to be a lot more of a factor, the weight difference. But in Crawford's case, he's cutting down weight. He's already walking around at 183. And so he's just cutting down like 15 pounds. And I believe that that's not going to affect him in a bad way. That's Roy Jones was saying that it can make his power even more powerful because he's already grown into that weight and he's not moving up in the weight. He's actually comfortable as far as like walking around in that weight. So he's just got to cut down to make the 168 from 183. He doesn't have to go up. So there's a difference. But Roy Jones was comparing his fight with Ruiz when he fought for the heavyweight championship. He had to go up in weight and the difference in power was a reality because they used 10-ounce gloves in the heavyweight and they used 16 in the lower weight, 16-ounce gloves. So the power was actually effective, but Roy Jones said that if Canelo loses to a guy that's considered smaller like Crawford, he's not losing to an ordinary regular fighter. He's losing to a great fighter that is technically smaller, but he's basically saying that Crawford, the weight's not going to be a factor because Crawford is a skillful technical puncher. So it's like Holyfield. When Holyfield came from the light heavyweight division to fight the heavyweight, he was a technical puncher at the light heavyweight. So when he moved to heavyweight, he still had his power. His power is still there. It's not diminished. He's never been a one-punch KO artist, but his power was there. So it's the same thing with Canelo, and it's the same thing with Crawford. They haven't never been a one-punch power punchers, but the power is going to be there as far as Crawford and Canelo. But the Canelo doesn't have one-punch KO, and neither does Crawford. But his power might increase because he comes from a lower weight class, and he's walking comfortably in that weight at 185, 183. So all he has to do is cut down in weight. He's not moving up in weight, and he's a technical puncher. So Crawford has always been a technical puncher, so he's going to carry that with him in the 168-pound division. So he made some good points, Roy Jones. He made some great points. Z Chata said hi. Griffith Bursig, how you doing, my brother? Amas Mika, I don't know how to read that. I'm going to butcher your name because that's a different language. Mike, Free Palestina. Okay, whatever. That's talking about Free Palestina. Okay, yeah, definitely. I agree with that. Frontline, Tony Chet, Familia. What's going on, my brother? Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Free Palestine, free Puerto Rico. Yes, yes. Frontline, Tony, we got that PR card today. Yeah, the Universal card. Yup. I mean, I didn't order the fight, but I'm gonna definitely watch it because Abisai Cotto is he's gonna be on the undercard and he's gonna share the fight with me. So I'm gonna be able to watch it and then give my assessment on their performances. Yes, Abisai Cotto, 8-0 with 7 KOs. I interviewed you. I interviewed Abisai Cotto on my channel, so check that out. Check that out, all right? Yeah, you can check that out on my previous videos. And I also interviewed Yanquier Rivera. Yeah, James Carson. Well, Canelo don't want to fight a much bigger opponent than him. Yeah, like David Benavidez. David Benavidez is technically a little bigger than Canelo, but he cuts down in weight. He'll fight Canelo and he can make it happen. But Canelo did say, well, in the press conference on Netflix, when they were asking questions to Crawford and Canelo, they asked Canelo, or Raheem asked Canelo, he said, would you fight, are you going to fight David Benavidez after this fight? And then Canelo said, you could tell he was frustrated with the question, but he answered him and said, I never say I won't fight him. I never say that I won't fight him. We'll see later. Right now I'm focused on Crawford. So yeah, of course he's gonna say that, and you know he's running out of opponents to fight. He's making the most money possible. So maybe he will fight David Benavidez eventually because he's made a lot of money, and now he's running out of opponents to avoid David Benavidez. So yeah, he might fight him. Yeah, so yeah, Universal promotion card. Check out Manuel Febus, who's gonna make his debut on Universal Promotions in Puerto Rico. Order the fight. It's gonna be on pay-per-view in Puerto Rico and the Ruben Rodriguez Coliseum. And I'm definitely going for all my Puerto Rican prospects fighting there. Abisael Cotto, Stephanie Peñero. I mean, all these fighters that are on the undercard. There's so many to mention. That, you know, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of great talent from Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rican boxing's alive. And I am the representative of Puerto Rican boxing. I interview the boxers in Spanish, and I give you elaborate details on behind the scenes. I'm going to be doing that soon with Yanquier Rivera when he fights in Orlando. He's going to most likely, hopefully, give me access to go behind the scenes in person. Yeah, so, well, yeah, thanks for tuning in, James Carlson. Subscribe to the channel. Yes, Canelo is this is what I think about Canelo. Canelo's a good fighter, but I think he's overrated. He's definitely overrated, and he's not great. I think he's good, but he's not great. It's just they put the right opponents and the right judges, and they like with Erislandy Lara, when he fought Erislandy Lara, we know that Erislandy Lara beat him. And when he fought Golovkin, those fights were very close. And I would give Canelo the first fight, but the second fight, I think Golovkin won. But, a lot of people say it could have went either way. And in the third fight, that Golovkin was older than dinosaur bones. So that don't really count. And I know Canelo did that on purpose. And I believe that Canelo's best victories are with Caleb Plant. And what's the other guy? The one from Brooklyn. He has two victories that I would say are impressive. I don't think the Daniel Jacobs was an impressive victory. The Daniel Jacobs fight, and also when Canelo fought Golovkin, I'm not gonna say, I say Caleb Plant and Daniel Jacobs is the most impressive performance that Canelo has ever had. And I believe that the fights that with Golovkin were very close, and he never dominated the elite that he was supposed to look dominant or impressive against. All his fights on a big scale were close victories and controversial. So I just feel that, Billy Sanders, like on paper, like that's not a fighter that's gonna go in the Hall of Fame. Like I'm talking about fighters like Errol Spence, who Crawford defeated and annihilated and made them look like they didn't belong in the ring with him, and he was a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter at the time. That's more impressive than what Canelo's ever done. And I just feel that, a lot of people have blackballed. He wasn't able to fight a legacy fighter like Pacquiao. Like that never came to fruition. And this is the first time that he's gonna fight a legacy fighter like Canelo. But I feel like, Canelo has a lot of championships, and we give him credit for that. But it's the fighters that he's beat and the way he's beaten them. He hasn't beaten them in a convincing fashion. And I don't say that he beat Hall of Famers. Has Canelo ever beat a Hall of Famer? Has he ever beat a Hall of Famer? Okay, Golovkin. I would say Golovkin will go down as a Hall of Famer. But before Golovkin fought Canelo, who did Golovkin beat? That's how you got to look at it too. Yes, Golovkin was knocking everybody out. He was dangerous. Floyd Mayweather didn't fight him. And he could have fought him, but, Floyd Mayweather didn't want to fight him because he was too big for him. But he fought Canelo. So I just feel that Canelo hasn't beaten any Hall of Famers. What, Munguia's a Hall of Famer? Do you guys think Munguia is a Hall of Famer? Do you guys think Belanga's a Hall of Famer? Do you think Jamel Charlo, the one that fought him, that moved up in 2 weight classes to fight him, do you feel that he's a Hall of Famer? I mean, he's a decent fighter, but he's not a Hall of Famer. But I would say Errol Spence, he's a Hall of Famer because he's beaten Danny Garcia. He's beaten everybody. He's fought everybody. He's fought Kell Brook. He's fought Sean Porter. I mean, he's fought the fighters that were available for him to beat, and he beat them in impressive fashion. And he fought. He didn't get to fight Keith one time Thurman. That would have been good. That would have been a good fight. But I think that Canelo's record is puffed up, just puffed up with names and records, but it's not puffed up with any names that we can say was a Hall of Famer that he actually beat. Did Canelo actually beat a Hall of Famer? Do you guys think Canelo's record, he has a victory over a Hall of Famer? I mean, come on, man. Let's think about this. Canelo hasn't beaten a Hall of Famer. He's just Amir Khan. Amir Khan, is Amir Khan a Hall of Famer? He's a decent fighter, but he's not like Errol Spence, who kept dominating for a while until he met Crawford. So yeah, I feel like they're not giving Crawford the credit that he deserves, and I believe Canelo Alvarez, he's good, but he's overrated. I think he's overrated. If you would put Canelo Alvarez in the 90s era, in the generation when Felix Trinidad was fighting in the welterweight division, and we had Oscar De La Hoya, Ike Corte, Pernell Whitaker, in that era, Canelo would be exposed for what he really is. A one-dimensional, flat-footed, slow fighter who has some skills, but he's not the fastest with his legs. He's not so mobile, and he looks good only when he fights limited opposition. Look when he fought William Scope. Did he look dominant? He only landed 56 punches when he fought William Scope, and William Scope believed that he won the fight. If you look at that fight, that is the fight with the lowest combinations thrown in the history of boxing and landed in the history of boxing. But it was a fight that was really boring. But William Scope, he possibly won that fight. But they're not going to give him that fight because that kind of style, now they're making a big deal about Tom and Jerry, where Turki Al-Sheikh saying we don't want no Tom and Jerry fights. But if you really look at it, he did a lot of running, yes, against Canelo, but Canelo didn't look impressive. He landed only 56 punches out of, 456 punches he landed? Something like that. No, 456 punches he threw, and I think he only landed 56 punches. That is the lowest boxing combinations landed and thrown in a fight in the history of boxing. So, let's not talk bad about Crawford's last performance against Israeli Madrimov, because if you look at Israeli Madrimov, he was moving up to 154 for the first time, but I still believe that he was never in danger of losing the fight. Crawford was never in danger of losing that fight, and he did what he was supposed to do in the last round to actually solidify his victory, to put the nail in the coffin to make sure that he gets the victory, that he shuts everything down. And I believe that styles make fights, and Victor Ortiz, Virgil Ortiz, he fought Israeli Madrimov, and he looked slightly better than Crawford in the fight, but that doesn't mean that he'll beat a Crawford. He would never beat a Crawford. But I feel that he still looked bad in the beginning of that fight. He struggled with Madrimov's style as well, and then towards the end, he started winning, and then he got more dominant, and he won the fight. But he didn't look great in the beginning of the fight, and it was a fight where he struggled and he didn't look very, very impressive, but he won the fight. So I feel that Crawford fighting Madrimov is a total different style than Canelo, and I believe Madrimov is more skillful than Canelo. He has more in his arsenal. He's more athletic, more technical, he's better at timing, and he's not as flat-footed as Canelo. I believe that he's better than Canelo technically. Technically, he's more technically sound than Canelo. I believe he is. And Canelo has skills, but when he fights, he looks like he's walking on sand. His feet are not so flexible. He's not the fastest. Yes, he throws combinations. He's good. He's dangerous. But I believe that Canelo is flat-footed, and Crawford is going to make him look foolish. I think Crawford is going to dominate him. That's my verdict. Crawford's going to dominate Canelo. And Shakur Stevenson said he's really high on Crawford. They're both friends, but he knows boxing, and he says that Crawford is going to beat Canelo easily. And I don't think that's a far-fetched prediction. I think Crawford is really going to dominate Canelo and make Canelo look like the one-dimensional fighter that he is. I feel that Canelo is a good fighter, don't get me wrong, but he is overrated. He's a boxing creation of Oscar De La Hoya and boxing promotion and picking opponents at the right time. Because if you look at Miguel Cotto and Canelo Alvarez, I think that fight could have went either way. I think Cotto should have won that fight, but they gave it to Canelo, and Cotto was coming up in weight. I think he had to, they fought at a catch weight, 155. I think that was the catch weight that they fought in, 152, 155. And I believe that Canelo, the most impressive victory that he's had was when he knocked out Golovkin in the third fight. Nah, that's not impressive, man, because he was older than Dinosaur Bones when he fought Golovkin for the third time. So he purposely did that, Canelo. I think his most impressive victory was Daniel Jacobs, and you would say Golovkin, yeah, because that was the most competitive, high elite fighter that he's fought. But if you look at it, who has Golovkin beaten before he faced Canelo? You could compare Golovkin, Canelo to Crawford, Errol Spence. Who do you think has the better victory? Who do you think has the better victory? Canelo versus Golovkin. Canelo versus Golovkin or Crawford versus Errol Spence? Who did what they were supposed to do in impressive fashion when they were supposed to at an elite level? In between those two fights, who do you think has the more impressive resume as far as those two fights right there and the way they each fighter won? Who do you think made a statement? Crawford or Canelo? Crawford has been hurt before. If Canelo hurts Crawford, Canelo knows how to finish. Look, Crawford's been hurt before early in his career by Gamboa. But that was a long time ago. And what about Canelo? He was hurt by Miguel Cotto's brother in the first of 2 or 3 rounds, right? Early in his career. That was early in his career. Canelo was hurt too, but that was early in his career. I believe that they've matured from that process in that phase of their career. They've been in a lot of fights where they have enough experience where they know how to handle themselves better than those other fights and early fights in their careers. So, front line, you make a good point. Crawford has been hurt before. If Canelo hurts Crawford, Canelo knows how to finish. Okay, Canelo has not knocked out anybody since Caleb Plant. Okay? And Crawford and Canelo both have been hurt. Crawford's been hurt by Gamboa early in his career. And he dominated Gamboa eventually. And Canelo was hurt by Miguel Cotto's brother. I think it was Jose Cotto in the early rounds of an early fight in the career. So they've both been hurt early in their careers. You can't use that analogy now because they're more experienced and they've evolved from that time and phase of their career. That was very, very early in their careers. But Crawford is more technically sound than Canelo. And you know that, front line. You know that. You're giving me good content. You're giving me good comments. I appreciate that. But you know that Crawford is more technically versatile than Canelo. He is poison for Canelo. He can box him. He can fight him. He can do it all. And I think his power is going to increase because he's always been not a one-punch power hitter, but he's always had technical power where he's going to carry it into the weight that he's in. And remember, he's not going up in weight with Canelo. He's cutting down weight because he already walks at 183 pounds approximately. So he's just cutting down weight. So he's going down in weight. And Canelo is actually probably the same weight, 184, 183. They walk around like that when they're not fighting or training. So Canelo is cutting down weight too, and they're gonna be at an even playing field. The only thing is that Crawford's never fought at that weight before, but it's not gonna affect them in a bad way because he's cutting down weight. He's walking around 183 and he's got to cut down weight. He's not going up in weight, eating or eating a lot of food and building muscle to go up in weight. No, he's already walking around at a higher weight, and so is Canelo. They're walking around at a 180 something, both of them. So Crawford is not going to be affected by the weight change too much because he's cutting down in weight. He's not going up in weight. It's a difference. Roy Jones made a good point right there in that interview with Andre Ward. Check it out. So that's, I feel like the undercard is gonna be amazing. The undercard of Canelo Alvarez. I think Turki Al-Sheikh did a great job with the undercard. He's gonna have Fernando Vargas, 17-0 with 15 KOs, fight Callum Smith, 14-0 with 11. Not Callum Smith, Callum Walsh from Cork, Ireland, 14-0 with 11 KOs. That's gonna be competitive, I believe, but I believe that Fernando Vargas will win. And he will stop him. He will knock him out. But we don't know. Boxing has surprises. But Billy's interim championship, WBC championship, and Billy is 29-0 with 25 KOs, and he's gonna fight. Lester Martinez from Guatemala. He's 19-0 with 16 KOs, and a lot of people are very high on him because he actually sparred with Crawford, and Crawford has spoke highly of him, and he wants to fight Canelo eventually, and I believe that he is the possible great prospect and contender. I would like to see how the results turn out between him and them Billy's for the interim WBC championship. That's going to be intense as well. 29-0 with 25 KOs and Billy's interim WBC. fighting Lester Martinez, 19-0 with 16 KO. So it's gonna be two great undercard fights already. The ones that grabbed my attention. So stay tuned for that. I look forward to that, and I'm gonna give you more boxing content later. Subscribe to the channel. Tony also knows boxing. I'll be back with the Canelo Crawford reactions and assessments on the day of the fight, and what I think of keys to victories, etc. And just to get people's feedbacks on my channel. Thanks for tuning into the channel. Tony also knows boxing. Subscribe to that channel if you are brave. If you are a coward and you're scared, go to those fake content creators out there that are not telling the truth and that don't know how to speak Spanish. But me, I give you bilingual content, I give you universal content and truthful content and brave content. So you subscribe to my channel, you are part of the brave warrior family of Tony Also Knows Boxing. Subscribe to that channel. Don't be afraid. Subscribe to that channel. Peace. Yes, I got Crawford winning by unanimous decision. He's going to surprise a lot of haters. A lot of haters. Peace. Tony Also Knows Boxing. Subscribe to that channel.